Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Dr. Jun-sok, Professor of Economics at the Catholic University of Korea. Professor Yang, good afternoon. Thanks for coming on today.
Happy to be here.
Well, the Federal Reserve's Jackson Hole Symposium, which we discussed last week, was held on Friday, and officials, including Jerome Powell, indicated that tapering could occur this year, but the Fed is not in a hurry to raise rates. Some are talking November for an announcement. What do you make of the situation, Professor?
Okay, well, probability is high that the tapering will begin this year. Chairman Powell did emphasize that if things go the way that they do, then the test that the Fed has for reducing the purchases of $120 billion worth of bonds per month will be met, both for inflation and maximum employment. Now, Powell did leave the possibility that if the situation changes because of the spread of the Delta variant, tapering may be delayed. Most of the analysts believe that the August employment numbers are due very soon. So if the August numbers do show that the recovery is continuing, then the announcement for the tapering will be made around September or October, and the tapering will begin in November or December. Now, as you mentioned, Chairman Powell did also emphasize that the decision for raising the interest rate is separate from the beginning of the tapering. Powell emphasized looking at absence of broad-based inflation pressures. In other words, inflation is concentrated on few goods, such as used cars, lodging, and airfare. And inflation on these few items are now moderating rather than accelerating. And looking at the wage data, looking at the inflationary expectations, and looking at the past history of about 25 years, the Fed still strongly believes that the high inflation that we see in the United States, while higher than expected, is expected to be temporary. So the Fed is not in a hurry to raise interest rates, and that provided a sigh of relief for financial markets, not only in the United States, but around the world.
Yes, as you say, investors in the U.S. stocks apparently liked what they heard from the Fed, and stocks on Wall Street rising to new highs yet again. Tell us about that and what you see ahead in the global markets this week.
Okay, well, the U.S. markets, for the most part, had a very good week last week. The only day that the indices fell was on Thursday. That was actually day before Powell's address at Jackson Hill, so they might have been a bit nervous around that time. But even though the markets fell on Thursday, it gained all of it back on Friday. So for the week, all the major U.S. indices actually gained. Dow gained 0.9% for the week. S&P gained 0.8% for the week, and NASDAQ gained by 1.2% of the week. And as you mentioned, the S&P and NASDAQ hit historical highs. Now, again, the markets do believe that tapering will likely begin sometime this year because Powell separated the tapering decision and the interest rate decision. The market seems to be relieved that the interest rate will not rise in the near future. European markets also fell on Thursday, but rose on Friday. But for the week, it had mixed results. CAC had a large fall on the 19th. It recovered somewhat, but it was more or less level for the week, and it is still not recovering to the high levels that we saw on mid-August. DAX was up and down for about the week, but about level throughout the week. FTSE was rising for the week. Asia market was all mixed as well. Last week, Nikkei and Shanghai rose early in the week, then leveled off. Hang Seng fell somewhat for the week as a whole, but all these European and Asian markets, they're following the signal from Friday's U.S. market, and they're all rising today.
Well, today, Korean stocks were up too, despite foreign investors continuing to sell and retail investors seeing a chance to take some profits. A strength today in some shipbuilders, construction, and so on. Tell us about the domestic market.
Okay, well, last week, it was early part of the last week, it had a rise, then leveling off. And it is still rising slowly, and today the markets rose fairly strongly. What was really surprising over the last week was that on Thursday, the Bank of Korea finally raised the interest rate by 0.25%, and the market basically just shrugged it off. On Thursday, the Korean stock market did not fall at all. Now, while most large investment institutions did believe that rates would rise in August, there was still a significant proportion of analysts who thought that rates would be frozen. So it's interesting to see that market as a whole just shrugged off the increase in the interest rates. But for August as a whole, largely because of foreigners selling off Korean stocks, they sold about 7 trillion won's worth of Korean stock on the net. Kospi lost about 2.45% over the last month, and Kosdaq lost about 0.57% over the last month. For today, Kospi ended at 3144.28. It rose 0.33% today. Institutions bought, foreigners and individuals sold. Kosdaq ended today at 1,031.86. It rose by 0.82%. Individuals and foreigners bought, and institutions sold.
And finally, Professor, this week we'll have the government's budget proposal for next year, also data on Korea's exports for August, and a jobs report in the U.S. What's on your radar this week?
Okay, well, as you said, the government budget proposal is due tomorrow. The big question is how much over 600 trillion won it will be. Originally, if you look at last year's long-term budget proposal, this next year's budget was supposed to be 589.1 trillion won. That's rising 6% over the budget for this year. But now President Moon and the ruling party said they're going to increase spending even more. So we'll have to see how that affects the government deficit and the government debt. Financial Supervisory Commission on Wednesday will issue financial stability report that includes the levels of debt and the effect, what effect that the interest rate rise would have on Korea, not just the past one, but also possible future rises as well. And on Friday, Korea consumer prices for August report will be out. And on foreign side, the interesting meeting will be on Wednesday when OPEC has their meeting. We'll have to see whether they decide to raise the oil supply or not.
Indeed. All right, Professor, we'll have to leave it there for today. Thank you, as always, for sharing your insights. We appreciate it.
Thank you.